Before we are going to start the vendor qualification, first of all, I will tell about myself. I have the 10.5 years of experience in the pharmaceutical sector, and by using these 10.5 years of experience completely, I will try my level best to do this video and to provide the complete information in the short time. So, if you are watching the first time my video, please watch and please subscribe and please share to your friends to subscribe my channel and please support the channel. And myself is Lakshmi Narasimha. I have the 10.5 years of experience. Okay, and no need to wait. And now our topic is vendor qualification. So now we will see the what is meant by the vendor and the definition for the vendor and also definition and also concept for the vendor. Vendor means who supplies the material to us by means of the manufacturing material in their own unit as per our requirement. That means here you may see in the text format, vendor is the manufacturer of the material who supplies the material, manufactured material as per the our requirement. That is the vendor. Vendor is the manufacturer of the material who supplies the manufactured material as per the our requirement. It is called as vendor. Now we will see what is the purpose of the vendor qualification. That means why we need to perform the vendor qualification. The quality of the output is determined by the quality of the input. That means here input is the material which is received from the vendor and the output is the after usage of the materials which are received from the vendor to us, and by using that material we will produce or we will manufacture that product, that is the output. So the quality of the award manufactured product is determined by the quality of the input material, that is the vendor material which is received to us. Okay, and now you may see why we need to perform the vendor qualification. Why means to ensure the quality consistency and needs the proper identification, evaluation and qualification of the vendor. So for that we have to perform the vendor qualification. And also vendor qualification is the regulatory requirement as mentioned in the ICH Q7 guidelines section 7.11 and also the section 7.12. And also you may see here the regulatory requirements. European GMP Chapter 7 outsourced activities, the contract giver and acceptor, fix Annexure 18 GMP guide for the active pharmaceutical ingredients, as well as 21 CFR 820.50 purchasing controls, evolution of suppliers, contractors and consultants. In WHO TRS 961 14.8 starting material should be purchased only from the approved suppliers and where possible directly from the producer. And ICH Q7 GMP guide for the active pharmaceutical ingredients and also joined to IPEC. IPEC means International Pharmaceuticals Excipient Council, and PQG Pharmaceutical Quality Group GMP guide for the pharmaceutical excipients, and also ISO guideline for the packing material, followed by ICH Q10, that means Pharmaceutical Quality System PQS 2.7 management of the outsourced activities and purchased materials. These are the guidelines and these are the regulatory requirements for the qualification of the vendor. So, before we are going to qualifying the vendor, first of all the purchase department will provide the best vendor to us, so based upon the quality and cost effective process. For that, purchase department has to be send the specifications and requirements from the plant by means of the taking the approachment from the QA or the CQA or the plant R&D, and by mutually combined with the quality. So see here, purchase department will send the specifications and questionnaire to the vendor to the plant. During that time, the purchase department has to be send the requirement which is taken from the R&D from the plant. So R&D may ask the following details. The details will include particle size distribution, impurity profile and residual solvents of the details, and specifications and method of analysis, stability data which maybe includes accelerated and real time. Real time means it is the long term, and also samples from the vendor along with the certificate of analysis, and also the standard, whether it is a working standard or reference standard. So the sample has to be received from the vendor, that is from the 3 different samples. So this is the criteria from the R&D before they are sending to the vendor from the purchase department. After receiving the sample has to be sent to the QC and thereafter the QC will finish the analysis and they will generate the data. If it is pass, then they will share to the QA. If it is fail, then also they will share to the QA, and thereafter if it is pass, then immediately the sample has to be forward to the R&D for put the experiment in case of key starting material only. If it is the general raw material, no need to perform the experiment. If it is the key starting material, then we have to send the material to the R&D and they will conduct the experiment, and again they will generate the data, and the same data has to be sent to the QA. Now here again QA will assess the data, and if it is fine, and then automatically they will recommend to the to do the process validation, because it is the key starting material. If it is a general raw material, no need to perform the validation. So now we are taking the key starting material from the new vendor or and the alternative vendor. For that we have to perform the prospective validation. Prospective means minimum 3 batches has to be taken, and after completion of the 3 batches validation, and we will see the quality equivalence data, and if we found the satisfactory the details from the 3 batches of the analysis data, then we will go for the approving the vendor. That means first of all, from the date of completion of the process validation, and we will consider as this one as the approved vendor, and so this vendor has to be audited. That means from the date of completion of the process validation, from the date to within 6 months we have to visit the plant and we have to conduct the audit, and if we found any observations, we will send the observations to them. They have to give the kappa, and if there is no observations, then it is fine, and immediately they will send the materials, and from them onwards we will start the procurement of the material from the vendor. Before we are going to purchasing or the procuring the material from the vendor, we will take the one quality agreement mutually from the vendor and the receiver. So receiver means customer, that means us. So that quality agreement which includes the functions of the production, QC, QA and R&D. So and also the date of effective and also date of the renewal has to be mentioned clearly in the official legal bond. That is the quality agreement. Now when we will conduct the re-audit, re-qualification, and also what is meant by the class A, class B, class C. One vendor based on their quality and GMP requirements. Now here we see the classification of the vendor on the basis of the parameters. The parameters which includes the quality parameter, system column parameter and overall parameter. That means overall parameter means the combination of the both quality and the system. The quality parameter means market complaint due to vendor material or the analysis of the vendor raw material. The system parameter means repetition of the kappa and vendor response. Now we see vendor qualification on the basis of the parameter. So overall parameter, if the both combination of the quality and the system, it should be, if the range is between the 90 to 100%, then it should be considered as the class A vendor. And the basically based on the quality and the system, these are classified into the 3 classes. That is the class A vendor, class B vendor, class C vendor. And the class A vendor is the range from the 90% to 100% in the case of the in the view of the quality and the system. And the class B vendor is the 75% to 90% range. And class C vendor is the overall parameter is the below 75%. So that means class A is 90 to 100, class B 75 to 90, and class C is the below 75%. Then this is the classification of the vendors, whether A or B or C, the based on the quality and the system. See what is meant by the class A vendor. Class A vendor means the vendor who holds the US DMF or the European DMF or the part of the qualified vendor list by the approved drug product license, and also have the history of the inspection from the regulatory bodies like US FDA, Therapeutic Goods Agency, MCC, EU of their manufacturing facilities, and they may be incorporated into the qualified vendor list by a QA on the successful evaluation of the questionnaire and the vendor stability report. That means whether the vendor which can have the or those can have the US FDA or TZ or the regulatory bodies inspection, and also whether based on the questionnaire satisfaction and also vendor stability report, whether they are in the our approved vendor qualified list, then they will be considered as the class A vendor. Then go for the class B vendor. Class B vendor means vendor not falling in the category class A above, but have the satisfactory vendor questionnaires and vendor suitability report. That means class B means they doesn't have the USFDA or the regulatory bodies inspections, but they can have the satisfactory vendor questionnaires and also the vendor suitability report. Okay, whenever the vendor have the vendor satisfactory questionnaires and also vendor suitability report, then only it should be considered the vendor class B. That means it doesn't have the regulatory inspections. This is the class B. So class C means rather than class A and class B. Class A can have the regulatory inspections and class B can have the satisfactory vendor report, the vendor suitability report. But in the class C, except the class A and class B, and have no satisfactory VQ and VSR, then it is considered as the class C. That means there is no satisfactory vendor questionnaire and also vendor suitability report, but vendor audit must be before taken, and that means the vendor has to be audited. Audit must be audited by means of the auditor, and also before we are including the qualified vendor list, we have to must be audit the vendor. Then that should be considered the class C. So, but class C is a very critical. So we have to take the most care before going to entering into the qualified vendor list if it is considered as the class C. This is the class C vendor. Now go for the vendor re-audit. When the vendor re-audit has to be carried out, all vendors for the critical raw materials are subject to the initial audit to establish their compliance with the principles of the GMP and suitability as a supplier. And the standard interval between the audit should be defined at least 3 years, but it can be extended based on the risk assessment with their justification. So all the vendors for the critical materials means KSM, and from the initial audit to 6 months or 3 years, we have to conduct the re-audit. That means once it has been came for the renewal after completion of the successful approving and after reaching the 3 years of the agreement period, then we are going for the re-audit. That is the one of the reason. And also if the periodic re-audit has to be carried out and product failures is happened and the quality issues is happened, means during that time we have to repeat the audit. That is also comes under the re-audit. And also regulatory concerns at the vendor side and verification of the compliance provided by the vendor. For that we have to perform the re-audit. This is the purpose for the re-audit. Vendor requalification. Vendor requalification has to be carried out when the material quality is received out of the trend, and also when the change in the manufacturing process. Manufacturing process change means when there is a change in the route of the synthesis, and also if there is a change in the manufacturing location. For example, the location is changed from the existing location, then we have to conduct the requalification and also resume supply after long time. That means if they are supplying the materials after such a long time, means that should be so called as resume supply after a long time. This is also one of the reason for the performing of the vendor requalification. So based on the performance of the suppliers, vendors can be considered as the certified reliable vendor, and reduced testing can be applicable for the certified or the reliable vendors only. So when if you are taking the reducing test from the vendor, then also you have to perform the requalification. So finally this is the vendor qualification. I will tell in the briefly single manner in the as in overall liberally. First of all, purchase department will send the documents and the requirements from the plant QA by means of the combining with the quality and also the the R&D department, and thereafter we will receive the samples from the vendor from the different batches with COS and reference standards and method of synthesis, the method of analysis and also the route of synthesis, and also the list of the solvents, and also along with that questionnaires and also declarations. And thereafter, after receiving the samples, they will QC conduct the analysis and followed with the R&D will do the experiments if it is in case of the raw materials, that is the raw materials which are considered under the key starting materials. And thereafter they will conduct the validation that is the prospective process validation, because this is the key starting material. And thereafter, and we will conduct the after completion of the process validation, we will go for the vendor audit. From the date of completion of the process validation, from that we have to conduct the audit from 0 day to 6 months itself. Before the 6 months, after completion of the audit, if we find any observations, we have to send the report observations in the observation manner, and they have to send the proper kappa. If we found the kappa is satisfied, then we will consider as the approved vendor. But before going to entering into the approved vendor list, up to that time it should be considered as the addendum vendor. That means these all procedures should be captured in the our plant SOP or the corporate SOP in the vendor qualification. So this is the procedure, and if you have any concerns, any details regarding the vendor qualification, just you may drop comments box, then I will give the answers. There is no doubt behind this. And if you are watching the first time my channel, please subscribe and please share to your friends to subscribe my channel. Thank you one and all.